Redefining teaching, learning, activities, and evaluation. That's what I was talking to you about. We need to redefine them. You cannot carry on with the same space because you don't have it. What do we want to do with our children? That's the question to ask. At the end of the day, what is the bottom line? What do you want? So what are the skills, goals, outcomes of English? And you will find that you can use this time to strengthen the fundamentals. What are those fundamentals? It's listening, speaking, reading, and writing. The other day I did a talk to some teachers, and they said to me, from 5 onwards, all the way, children cannot speak. They're not able to hold a conversation. They're not able to sustain a topic with some rigor and actually talk. They cannot do it. They cannot download vocabulary in quick succession in order to be fluent. Some of these things are gross failures in our system. So just because we set a paper and we give them 90 marks and then all of us clap and feel happy is not it. Are they able to speak? This is one of those big ones, because if you're not able to speak, you cannot function in the language. You will be shortchanged at every level after that school life. So therefore, let's try to get those children those competencies of speaking that they do not have. And how are you going to do that? So speaking, I've always said that you need to get them to speak. The tongue has to speak. So that 20 minutes of reading that I advocate so vociferously to all of you, 20 minutes of reading aloud is something that they can do now in this time. Because there's plenty of time, there's nothing to do. I cannot go out, I cannot play, I cannot, how much TV, how many games will I play? You can get that 20 minutes out. You can get your parents to enforce some of those little things like reading aloud for 20 minutes from a good English newspaper, magazine, book, whatever you have, aloud, not in your mind, because the mind will only look for meaning. You can get them to do 20 minutes of viewing, and that can be a homework from one of the genres that you are planning to teach, or you can use it as listening comprehension, or you can use it for a variety of purposes like making a mind map or doing a Venn diagram or listening to it. You can holistically integrate it with subjects like history and geography and use both your graphics as well as your videos in order to write a report. So then it's the sky is the limit to what you can do. But if you don't do this, you will find that children then again do not have, they have not learned any, see this skill time you will not get in that school because you're on a run. There is an expectation that you work. There is a certain time that you spend in commuting up and down. You're traveling in certain circumstances and polluted air that is going to tire you out when you don't have any of that. Just think about it. Everyone is sitting at home. Nobody is really running the race anymore, especially children. So there is absolutely no reason why we cannot do this kind of stuff with them. So don't get attached to those chapters and stories. Start going to my learning outcomes. Start going to my teacher manual. Because there you will know what are the skills that you need to impart. I need to do key ideas and supporting sentences. I need to get my children to summarize. These are life skills, for God's sake. They're not even examination skills, they are life skills. So you need to make sure that those children are able to be on top of it by the time this lockdown gets over. Because there's no time like now to get it done. It's a golden opportunity. Okay? If you don't do that, and if you start taking a page of my book and start reading it line by line, if you start getting them to read it line by line and then do the question answers and then do the meanings and you do all that kind of stuff, you would have missed the boat in these opportunities. So make sure you don't miss that boat. So listening, speaking, as I told you, the viewing and the oral stuff is very important. If you've got language with ease with you, then pair work becomes one of your important ones. Get them to talk, get them to record it on WhatsApp and send you a video. I mean, send you an audio of the recordings of these children, which they can do together. So that's one of those things that you can do. Your reading and writing. There are online books. I believe there's something called Epic, and it has got downloads of some 1600 books or something like that. A whole lot of people are coming in and saying, take books for free. So you can recommend the kind of books you want children to read. So they don't have to be wasting their time. Make sure that you know their reading levels and you don't recommend one book for everyone. Recommend 5. So that the reading levels are not compromised, they are not struggling with it, and they don't hate you for it. So don't do that. Keep it simple, but this is the time to catch up on all those things. One of the things that I would do is to actually create a remedial group, or your RT group. You want to do something special with them, create another group, another time slot, and have those children in so that you can do a more sustained kind of work. You don't have to meet these children every day for 5 days. You can meet them for 4 days and then have 1 day for that remedial group exclusive. I'm not saying those children shouldn't sit there in that other group, but I think you can just do some remediation work with them, and that will help them to get better, right? Your comprehension, reading and writing, by the way, go together. So as I said, reading, if you're reading something out of the book, a story, then you get them to write a story. Get them to mind map the story. Get them to write a part of the story. Don't have to burden them with 10,000 pieces of homework. That would be unrealistic, right? But you can do a lot of discussions, because when you come to comprehension, it has been scientifically proved that if you know something about that passage, you are likely to do much better than if your English is stronger. They've actually scientifically checked that out. So the more your children know, the better they will be at comprehension skills. Comprehension is about skills. That entire book is comprehension. Whether you're asking, have you understood the story? Have you understood the report? Have you understood the poem? What are you doing? You're asking, did you comprehend, basically, right? So therefore, comprehension is done to death, but comprehension skills are not really, you don't pay attention to them. So your context to meaning, words, do not drive them to a dictionary, make them guess the meaning of the word by context. Very important. Get them to look at key ideas. What are the key ideas? How will I summarize it? Very important. What are my supporting sentences? How has the paragraphing taken place? These are all skills. Empowering English is full of skills. It's not about the stories at all. If I've given you a story, I basically want you to analyze it, and I want you to then make the child write a story along similar lines. If I've given you a description, it's a gradation of ways in which you layer that description so that you become absolutely brilliant by the time you're in grade 8, isn't it? So there's no reason why you cannot do any of this. Essay, as I said, is again writing, and then you've got grammar, which is language with ease, one sentence at a time. You can get them to do it at home and bring it. Don't replicate the classroom. Don't put it and say, what is the, what is girl, what is went, what. Don't do this, because it's a waste of time and it's boring. Get them to do it. Get one child to put it up and teach it, and let's see how many of them got it right. After 3-4 days, you give them a small little test. Tell them to write it right now, do it right now, and then let's see whether you've got it right or wrong. So there are many ways in which you can do things. Vocabulary building needs to happen. Change the adjective, change the adverb, change the adverb into the adjective, change the adjective into an abstract noun. It's brilliant. I'm spending an hour and a half with my grandson who is in New Zealand. He is also at home, and he spends that time with me, where he's a native speaker. He does not need a lot of help with English, but he's somebody who needs vocabulary. Now he's just going to be 10 in June. He needs strength, vocabulary. He needs a lot of other kinds of things that need to happen with him. And recently I looked at a video on TED. TED has got a lot of videos, by the way. It's also got stories from Greek myths and things like that. And the stories are so beautifully done, with clarity, with excellent pronunciation, with engaging animations, that when I looked at it, the first thing I thought was, I must get this child to pick out the adjectives. That was my first thought, because the stories were simple in themselves, very engaging, but the language in the stories was spectacular. And I said, pick out the adjectives and then tell me how you would change it into an abstract noun, how you would change it into an adverb. So I've done a grammar lesson with that video. Now I can also do characterization. But if you look at the language, there is about 30 pieces of vocabulary in that 5-minute video. Now you tell me, why would I sit with a book and read? This is what I'm asking you. If I would take a book and start reading it line by line and underlining meanings, I would be doing such a huge gross injustice to this medium. So don't do that. Start looking for materials where you can hone the skills of your children. That's most important. So the skills of vocabulary can come from several places. The generation of vocabulary can come from that one sentence of LWE that you make them do. But you don't have to be sticky with it and say, I have to do all of those. The entire book I have to complete right now. Okay, so that's grammar, that's your language paper. As I said, prose and poetry, start thinking in terms of genre, title, what are the basic ideas, what sort of genre, if it's an argument, what are the 3 pieces of argument there is. If it's persuasion, who is persuading whom, what are the arguments being given, are they emotional or rational? If you're doing a discussion, pros and cons, junk food, sleepover at friend's house, just 2 arguments for children, even if they are small. If they are very small, then their reading needs to happen in grade 1, right? So those are some of the things that you can actually get done now. And most storybooks, tell their parents to read if they can read, send them to animated videos if they can't read, because they still need to hear a lot of English. Before they read, if the child can understand the language very well, and if they can speak the language, half the battle is won. Because reading and writing will catch up. Brilliantly catch up, trust me. So therefore, prose and poetry. Now, if you look at poetry skills, what are the skills for poetry? Now, for all of these things, there are 74 videos that I have made sitting on my YouTube channel called the Mindsprings English Teacher. Please go and take a look at them. If your own English is not very, grammar is not very good, this is the time for you to make sure that you become a grammar expert. If you are not writing stories along with the children, this is the time to start writing stories. Go and look at the video on how to plan a story. If you are in middle school, allow those children to go and view the videos that I have already given you, because I'm doing the teaching. See, I've taken the onus from you and I'm bearing it. Why would you reinvent the wheel? On the net, when we've got videos sitting there by people who have done it better than us, if there is Richard Burton reading a poem, why would I try to compete? Tell me. Or if there's Michael, what's his surname, Rosen, if he's reading a story, I can never dream to compete with him. He's brilliant. Just put them on to him, see? And ask questions on that. Take the same skills from Empowering English and ask those questions. Because today, you've got this medium. When you go back to school, you will not have this medium anymore. It will vanish and you will be back to the desks and the books. So use it. I'm just selling it to you. I'm showing you how amazing it is and how we will be wasting our time if we try to replicate the classroom here. Share your learning objectives with the students and with parents so that it's transparent and everybody knows what you're doing, and parents don't say, why haven't you finished this chapter, that chapter? Parents need an education. Tell them it's not the same space. Most importantly, when you give those tests, when the children use vocabulary, celebrate it. Talk about it. Call that parent and say, have you heard him using this language? Did you read that little bit that he did? Take that trouble. That parent is going to be thrilled that you called, that you praised her son. Both the son and the or the daughter and the parent is going to feel wonderful. So take a little bit of those trouble once in a way. I'm not saying call them every day, all the time, all of them. No, no, sir. But if you do that transparent kind of teaching, you will get a lot of support. Educate your parents on email to not have the same format. That's what I was saying. It will be stressful and inefficient. Use teacher time well. Do not ask for 20-minute videos to be viewed when you are sitting doing nothing, or make them write again you're sitting doing nothing. All those things need to be done at another time, and they should be bringing it, and you should be interacting with them during that precious 1 hour that you've got.